Much for joining us this afternoon and for the rest of the sessions. I hope you're having a great time today. I hope you got a lot out of the day so far. For those of you who joined us yesterday, thanks again. My name is Ryan Rodriguez-Wiggins. I'm a senior director at MetricStream, working in sales and account management. My background actually comes from the practitioner side, however, so I've been with MetricStream for 3 years. Prior to coming over to MetricStream, I was actually a client of ours. Working at E-Trade for a few years, building out their enterprise risk management framework, which also included touch points, the business continuity management, and building out the reporting and planning and how that all rolled in. Prior to that, I was at Morgan Stanley for 7 years, working in multi-first and second lines of defense, and helping with them with a lot of the technology solutions that they had put together. We've got a great panel here today. I'll ask them to introduce themselves each in a second. But just real quickly, we've got Kenetan Marcano to my left. Assistant General Manager, Group Operations Risk and Control, First Citizens Bank. We've also got Dennis Wenk, Global Consulting Director, Veritas. We've got Imad Moeen, who's the CTO of Everbridge, actually, so one of our technology partners. We've also got Bill Simmons from BMO Harris, leading their business continuity there, and Gavin Brown, who's a Global Head of Resilience at Standard Chartered. So great panel here today. Ashik, if you just want to hit the next slide. So this is something I've been starting off all of my business continuity management discussions with, because I think it's important to set the stage. This is a quote from Benjamin Franklin, Winston Churchill, and it's really, those who fail to plan are planning to fail. It's something we've heard many times before, and this is something from 100, 200 years ago that really remains true today. I was actually giving a presentation down in Trinidad, and I pulled up this slide and mentioned it, and one of the gentlemen who was leading the team, he said he's also heard it wasn't raining when Noah built the ark, right? So the idea is we really need to have a plan in place. We really need to think about the future. And Ashik, if you go to the next slide, this is not only, if you look back over business continuity management and where it's been in the past 5, 10, 20 years, in many cases it was kind of check the box activity or being managed, siloed. Okay, I've got my BCM plan, it's on my desk. If I need to, action, I know what to do. In today's global day and age, where everything's so mobile, you've got so many different vendors involved, your program is really made up of so many different aspects. Business continuity management plays an extremely important piece, right? So you've got the historic, kind of typical BC activities that are coming in, your business impact analysis, your business continuity planning. You've also got information coming in from information security, right? So if you're thinking about your vendors, performing your due diligence there, and then also other areas of risk management. And how do we really all bring this in to build out and make our programs resilient? So that's what we'll be talking about here today. So we'll just go down the line, and just if you want to introduce yourselves a little bit about your background, and also how you came into business continuity management, because I think everyone's got an interesting and different story. Okay, go.
So, I said I'm the head of professional. My background is actually in finance.
I can turn up, please.
Yeah, sorry. So I started out as a portfolio manager in the largest mutual fund company in Tobago, and moved across into financials. But enterprise was always attracted me because I was really interested in the link between strategy and risk management. So when the opportunity came up, this was from the operational risk I went across. And basically, that role involves oversight of business continuity management. And I really like the concept of planning for the worst, because you can never really predict the probability of something happening actually today. That's what's the problem. If you have the contingency plans, basically you can come back with it. So that's what we do.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dennis Wenk. I'm Global Advisory Director for Continuity and Resiliency for Veritas. And I basically go around the world helping our customers architect and strategize for highly available, secure, and resilient infrastructure. So I have a little story about how I got into business continuity. We had a customer in Pennsylvania, and they had an outage, IT outage. And the chief financial officer went in and talked to the CIO, and the CIO and told the CIO that he never wanted to have another outage. So we were engaged to build a highly resilient infrastructure for them. I had a team of about 5 or 6 people. We worked in the neighborhood of 6 months. Large insurance company, so everything that you would expect in an insurance company. And we architected pretty much a failover environment for them where they'd be able to stay up. And we presented that to both the CIO and the CFO. And both of them got up and spot on. This is exactly what we wanted. CFO, of course, asked the damaging question, well, how much is this gonna cost? And I said, well, really, that wasn't part of the engagement, but we'll be happy to cost it for you. So we sat down and we costed it out. And we had a subsequent meeting to that and came back in and we presented the numbers and what they wanted to do. And the CFO looked at me and said, Dennis, I didn't mean never fail. I meant almost never fail. So really that's kind of started my career. And rather than planning, I think I cottoned to Benjamin Franklin's "A stitch in time saves 9," and an ounce of cure is worth a pound of, or an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? I look more at what we can do, not to how do we plan for when something happens and recover from it, but how do we prevent that from occurring in the first place? Because it's probably 3 times less costly to prevent an interruption than it is to recover from it. So.
Very good. Mark?
Matt Green, I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Everbridge. I've been in technology pretty much my entire career. I've been doing this for 25, 26 years. A little younger than I'm here. But in CTO for the last 15 years or so, so I'm responsible for all the products, multi-director for Everbridge. At Everbridge, we're a large SaaS-based provider of critical event management capabilities and services. We started in the emergency notification space right after 9/11. How do you quickly notify lots of people that there is something bad happening? And I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of bad things happen at far more frequently. So over the years, we've evolved from emergency notification to critical communications, which are literally more operational in nature. Almost day-to-day type of operations that we have, the workflow associated with them, etc. And lately, to critical event management, meaning that when something bad happens, how do you quickly identify that this happened, so you actually start looking at your plan for the next few weeks. So assessing what the risk is in real time, then identifying and locating the appropriate stakeholders, and actually executing your plan. All said and done, analyzing what we did, and we could have done better. So that's what the critical event management platform is all about, and that's what we really use to integrate with a variety of BCP and BCM tools.
Bill Simmons, I'm Vice President of Business Continuity for BMO. I oversee all of the testing, training, life safety, et cetera, for the U.S. Got into business continuity. I started as an IT, land admin, fixing printers and so forth. And after September 11th, policymakers got nervous, the federal government got nervous, started telling us that we needed really more business continuity to go to the ER that's recovering. So my boss came to me and said, hey, let's start this group. You want to come along, you know, the IT side of it, maybe we can bridge some of the technology and the businesses together in a more cohesive way. I said, great, because it was more painful.
That's always good.
Yeah. So went over there and The grade of the business continuity is from time 2003 till now has grown significantly. If you're not aware, you can see that threats emerged in the global landscape of the world.
My name is Captain Brown.
Ryan, we're having a problem with microphones. Don't seem to be working either of the last two.
Do you want to try one of those? Yeah. Or maybe hold it closer. There.
How's that? Is that better?
Switch it off, switch it on again.
That's not one. So, yeah, sorry. So, yeah, Gavin Brown, Global Head of
Thank you, sir.
Resilience. Like the time. For Standard Chartered Bank. It's a FTSE 100 bank based in Africa. My background, I started banking in 2012. Prior to that, 17 years at world. It's absolutely fabulous. And decided to spend time family. So left Dr. Bank. It's been fantastic. Really enjoyed it. Started off doing physical security, close to business and be more relevant to the customers.
Sorry, we're not hearing it. The mic is not working.
The worst case scenario, we can just pass the
Yeah.
this around.
Yeah, this one more.
Here we go.
Thank you. Well, it doesn't really matter. We spent a lot of time talking about us. Maybe we should move on to the subject at hand.
No worries. So
I have a question for Gavin. Are you taking more shots now than you did when you were in Afghanistan? Or?
I tell you, it's much more risky.
So the first question is really kind of going back to my point earlier. Where we are in technology with business being so intertwined. We've obviously got a lot of different experience here. Bank of Montreal, Canadian-based, but you're out of Chicago at BMO Harris, Standard Chartered, kind of global on the other side of the world, and First Citizens out of Trinidad. So very different areas, and two of our panelists have touched upon tragic events that really kind of opened many people's eyes in terms of business continuity. I mean, even if you think about recently, Hurricane Sandy with New York, Wall Street basically being underwater, which folks never thought could happen. Tell me a little bit more, and Bill, if you want to start, about the importance of business continuity and resiliency, and how that really drives business productivity.
Oh, absolutely. Can you hear me on this one? Okay. So it's very important. I mean, the global landscape is changing almost daily when it comes to cyber, to just physical threats on banks. We've been doing a lot of training around active shooter and things that happen to actually shut down the business. You don't think about it. You think about, okay, someone from the outside is going to come in and corrupt our systems and so forth. But people don't think about is that you're in your physical location. You're not having access to your physical location. What are you going to do if there's an active shooter event or a crime scene? They're going to shut down the business for a while, police that location.
Right.
And you have to think about those things when you're thinking about the resiliency of the bank, or resiliency of the business, because what's resiliency? It's making sure that your business can continue. And whether it's a cyber, whether it's viruses from within or without, whether it's physical threats, you need to think through all of these things, all of these risks, and what are you going to do when they do happen? And that is what's on the forefront of our minds. How can we continue regardless of what?
Gavin, I don't know if you have thoughts or comments on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think what's so vital in the work that people who look after resilience or business continuity or any of the variety of different aspects of all of that is that understanding of the huge amount of knowledge that a business continuity team have about the interdependencies and interwoven nature of a business and the service that is delivered to the customer. And any of these disruptive events, be they cyber or system failure or terrorism events or natural disasters, whatever they are, they can happen in one part of that network and have such a significantly disruptive effect across the whole network. And I think there are very few parts of an organization that have the same intrinsic knowledge of the DNA and the interconnectedness of the company as a business continuity team does or as a resilience team does. So I think having that knowledge of the DNA and the hard coding of a company, it puts us at a very unique position to be able to be agile, to anticipate those threats and find clever ways of proactively avoiding them and certainly very quickly recovering from them.
Sure. Just to add to what Gavin said, I mean, the threats to resilience, such as cyber, and I guess even after shooter situations, like Bill pointed out, are also possible in our environment of Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean. But we also face, I think, some more unique threats, if you will. So, of course, we are in the hurricane belt, and we're also some of us are in the earthquake zone. So, we also have the threat of natural disasters and impacting the ability to be resilient and to continue your business. You know, and the thing is really, in my opinion, is to really be able to define those scenarios, see how they impact your critical business processes, come up with plans and test the plans, exercise them, find out the issues with the plans, create action plans to resolve those issues. Because when you ignore them and the real thing happens, you will not be able to deliver the impact and the value to your customers. So it's really important to understand where exactly your vulnerabilities are and to make the investment to ensure that the vulnerabilities to your key business processes are closed.
Yeah, chime in.
One thing, just to give people a little bit of context in terms of what's going on out there right now. One of the interesting aspects of having a software as a service platform is that we get to actually see behind the scenes what's going on. And one of the most fascinating statistics is to see how many activations there are. Now, there could be, you know, as you mentioned, drills or tests, or it could be for real. At any moment, if I look at my platform today, there are at least 1,300 simultaneous activations going on at any one time around the world. And this is, again, across probably about 4,000 different enterprise customers. And this is hugely different from what's been the norm just a few years ago. A few years ago, we had to worry about, you know, we have too much capacity out there because for the longest time there would be nothing flowing through the system. We'd be completely idle and we're thinking about how do we optimize our peaks and valleys. Now, the system is never quiet. 1,300 activations at any one time. Yes, some of them are operational, some of them are tests, but if you were to really know how many risk events are out there that are actually impacting your business or other businesses, I don't know, maybe you would want to get out of bed.
No, very, very true. And
So I have a question for the audience. How many people out there have been affected by a flood, fire, hurricane disaster recently? Okay. How many people have had IT outages? About twice as many people have IT outages and smoking hole events. I know that the smoking hole event creates an IT outage, but just a little bit of information. Last year, organizations lost about $178 billion due to floods, fires, hurricanes, and tornadoes. We lose $500 billion a month because of IT failures. So are we looking at the right threats?
Wow, interesting. We also want to make this interactive, so feel free if you have any questions. to raise your hand. We want to make sure that we're hitting the points that you want. Switching gears a little bit and talking a little bit more about vendor risk and how that vendor requirements comes in to play with respect to DCM. Bill, do you want to chat about that and kind of the FFIEC Appendix J?
Oh, absolutely. We're regulated, highly regulated consumer financial industry. Our business continuity platform is on the foundation of what the FFIEC has put out. Recently, they put out their Appendix J. That booklet, you guys are familiar with the booklet that hadn't changed since 2008. And all of a sudden now, 3 years ago, Appendix J. And it was mainly around cybersecurity and testing with your vendors. Because now what they're coming in and looking at is saying, okay, yeah, it's great that you guys have a business continuity plan, but what about your critical vendors? You're saying that you can recover, but what if your vendors don't recover? So we've been having to have to go out to the people who are our plans and saying, you might need to start looking at your contracts again. You might need to start looking at your critical vendors and not only asking them to come test with us, because we have several major tests throughout the year. But not only test with us, but see if you can test with them. Because it's, for them to give us a letter saying, yes, we have a business continuity program, everything is swimming, it's great, is no longer coming. The regulators want to see that we're actually actively pursuing and testing for them to be sure that not only can they recover, but we can recover with them. So we've been in the past 2 years and reaching out and amending those contracts and those service level agreements and making sure that that is critical. Because we could have a vendor, let's say in London. London just went under, just had a terrorist attack, well, two. Well, not London, London had one, and then one in Manchester. Had a terrorist attack. One, we had a vendor that was right next door to them. And that vendor was closed down for a week. How does that affect us? Right? We just had, our capital markets group is right in Times Square. Times Square had a crazy guy who drove his car in Times Square. It was right in front of our office. One of our employees got injured. One of it was 15 of our employees or a vendor that got injured. And we are out of luck. So we need to look at this, look at our relationships, make sure that our supply chain stays intact throughout the event.
I think I was going to say, Gavin, are you seeing the same thing, abroad?
Yeah, definitely. It's the same challenge with the same regulatory driver to make sure we understand that defensively. But I would probably go further. I think we perhaps focused on third parties because the regulators asked us to be focused on third parties. But actually, what we need to do is think about the service to our customer and work back from those services to all the internal and external components that need to have resilience and need to have strength and depth in order to ensure that under whatever moments of duress we are able to maintain that service to our customer. I think that's where BCM is moving towards that sort of resilience approach, which I think is absolutely right, and not because it's a regulatory driver, because it's required in order for us to give assurance that we're going to be able to deliver that service to our customers.
Thank you. Switching gears a little bit, and I'll pass this over to Dennis and Akhenaton. Tell me how some, a VC is coming into the enterprise risk management, and Dennis, you deal with strategies and putting together the overall. This is why we need to do it. How does that come together? Either risk assessments or greater oversight within the business. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
So what I'm seeing in the field is that there's a paradigm shift. You've got business continuity management is now looking at high availability targets. So we're talking to customers of mine that have recovery time objectives of less than 15 minutes. They want to recover in 15 minutes, and I think about 34% of all organizations have some type of critical business that requires a reduced time frame to recover. And about 86% of those have recovery time objectives of less than 4 hours. So you're starting to see business continuity need to meet high availability requirements. So this convergence of high availability, business continuity, disaster recovery, and resiliency all coming together at one time. As we know, we've got all these different types of threats that are out there. Which threat is the right threat to focus on? You simply can't test against everything. It's difficult to identify which one is out there. How do you identify which is the right threat? What's the right threat that you need to focus on? And where do you put your money? Because it really comes back to my first analogy is we can architect for high availability and failover, but very few organizations can afford to do everything to make sure that they have that high availability requirement. So which ones are the right threats, and what's the most cost-effective way to implement those? So I think that's the change that we're seeing. We're seeing a paradigm shift going into more operational risk. How do we manage the operational risk for the organization? How do we manage that? How do we cost it? And then how do we address the optimal mitigation actions that minimize the risk, overall risk for the organization? Rather than guess at it, are there other things that we can do to actually help the organization make better decisions about where they should invest?
Let's transition from Dennis's point there. You made a point about focus, and I have a saying, if everything's a priority, then nothing's a priority, right? So the key is to bring BCM into enterprise risk management context, and that context is best articulated through risk appetite. So globally, we have a risk appetite for uptime for key processes and therefore key applications. And those indicators or targets are linked to a strategic decision about where we're going to take a business. So for example, if electronic banking is the direction we're taking our business, then we'll focus on uptime, or that will allow us to have high availability for our e-banking, our credit card, our ATM, all of those kind of platforms. Whereas maybe other platforms that are not so digitally sensitive, we may sort of scale back the investment. But the idea is to focus the investment in resilience to where it has the biggest bang for your buck, because you really cannot have 100% redundancy for 100% of all your processes. It's just not practical, and basically it's probably also not the best use of capital. So
one of the areas that I find resilience in BCM and enterprise risk management come together is I find enterprise risk management can be, with the greatest respect to anyone who's in that space, it can be a little bit theoretical, right? It's like the process and the controls. You're working from the bottom up based on these processes, and you hope the controls are going to keep you within risk appetite, and that everything's good. What I like about resilience in BCM is it brings that degree of practicality and top-down risk, and certainly external drivers, and you can make strong cases to think about risks in a very different way, a complementary way perhaps to that which is in the sort of second line enterprise risk management space.
Let me, if I could just second that, right? Sometimes the chasm between the purely theoretical that has to do with essentially the planning, what actually happens when you need to deal with a situation like this can be huge. And my suggestion is to try to close that gap, cross the chasm as quickly as possible. What are the things that matter? You're right that sometimes you can't keep track of all of these risk events that are happening. If you were to try to look at them, then you can't prioritize anything. Well, what matters, right? It's your people, it's your assets, it's your system, it's your brand, and ultimately it's your supply chain. So what if you could simply say, all I care about, honestly, there are a lot of bad things happening around the world, but if it doesn't touch, if one risk event doesn't touch those 5 things, then as callous as it might sound, I don't care. It doesn't matter how bad it is, I just don't care, it doesn't touch any of those. So what if you would say, out of the 1,269 risk events that are going on right now, you know what, I'm being voted on 3 of them, because only 3 of them are in some way, shape, or form impacting my people, my assets, my brand, my systems, or my supply chain. And therefore, based on that, I can then determine what steps I need to undertake in order to mitigate any type of impact as quickly as possible. And I can narrow down, go from the purely theoretical, well, if this were to happen, here's what we do, to the very practical. This happened in this region with these particular parameters, whether it's this crisis level or these systems that are impacted, and therefore, here is the team that I need to activate. Here are the escalation rules that I need to have in case I can't get to that team, because I gave them only so much time to get together because of the RTOs that I have. So that's key, narrowing it down to those very, very few practical steps, and then obviously drilling on them as frequently as possible to see whether the concrete steps that you have in your plan are actually feasible and realistic.
So here's how I see that problem just a little bit different. One is, it's very easy to say, I've got these kind of risk events that are happening. What should I do about them? What do you do before the risk event? The real problem is, if I have somebody shooting at me, I know that I should duck, run, take cover. Before somebody shoots at me, what should I do? Should I worry about the guy shooting at me? Or is it something else, like a big hole in the wall, that poses a bigger threat than someone coming into my organization shooting at me? So there's a couple of issues here. One is, if we're always constantly worried about what is happening and how we're going to respond to it, we never build in the preventative actions that we need to build in so those things don't happen in the first place. And too much of our time is focused on planning for events that are rare and may never happen. And not enough time is focused on what we should be doing to put in mitigation actions before something happens. And we'd be much better off, 3 times better off, if we focus most of our attentions on the things that are really threatening to us and that have a high payback to us if we do something about that. Because that will also trickle down to the organization to be a more effective organization than waiting for something to reacting to it. And one of the things that came out of the military action was pre-bang, post-bang. You know, if we're always worried about the post-bang, what do we do to recover? We're never thinking about the pre-bang things that we should be planning for. So how do we switch our focus from post-bang to pre-bang? And I think that would be a more effective way to invest than to wait for something to happen and react to it.
Very, very good comments all around. Bill, go ahead.
No, all I was going to say is, one, this is the way we balance it, or we learned to balance it. And it came really out of the target, the target. And where we're balancing where we should put our focus on is that we were starting to focus a lot on crisis management and having a crisis communication plan. Because no matter what the incident is, it's how we respond to it, right? And if we respond poorly, it could be a small incident, it could be a large incident, it could be an IT failure, it could just be a small fire at one of our plants or what have you. If we respond poorly to our customer base, if we respond poorly to our employees, if we respond poorly to the news media, et cetera, then we're ruined regardless. All those 5 things that you talked about, gone. Doesn't matter. So what we've been doing in the past 5 years, 6 years, really, since the target incident, is that we've been training our executives, we've been training our communication teams, we've been training our communication teams within the businesses on how to respond to an event in event management. Because event management is a strong pillar in business continuity. You don't think about it in a risk standpoint, we're just thinking about risks. We're just thinking about all the things that could possibly go wrong, or the things that we want to mitigate, or the things that could impact us as a business. We don't think about how we can communicate those things. And so that's kind of how we've been balancing where we're going to put our focus.
Well, I know I've always been able to get money out of the bank. I'm a BMO. I've always been able to get my money out of the ATM. So you're doing a good time there, Bill.
Well, I'll absolutely second what Bill said. I mean, the way that you deal with a crisis or an issue can have far more impact than the crisis or incident itself, right? They used to say a while back, we haven't heard this in a long time, that they're covering enforcement crime, right? We'll probably hear it again soon. But anyway, the way that you respond to a particular issue or crisis can be far more impactful than whatever it is that created it in the first place. So having that type of plan, obviously, ahead of time is critical within your ability to execute on it.
Definitely. I want to turn it around and over to the audience. What questions do you have? What are you curious to hear and learn more about?
So, have any of you had an opportunity to leverage other risk data in a framework to inform your planning, your business impact analysis, that kind of thing? Curious about that because it's something that I'm interested in developing. I'd like to understand how I can leverage already existing data to do that.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think that's exactly where we need to be. So we've started that journey, I would say, in combining some data from finance, from customers, feedback, from treasury, from corporate affairs, from property, from a number of different places, and bringing that data together. And what I would say is looking at it in two ways. So one in what I would maybe call, please, with no disrespect, to the traditional style of BCM sort of planning, and embedding some sort of more data-driven approaches in that space, but also in what I would call in the more proactive resilience space, which is in building redundancy and strength and depth into the systems in BAU, so that hopefully we won't need the business continuity plans and disaster recovery plans and the crisis communication approach as often, or certainly under less impactful situations. So yeah, definitely. I think data-driven analytics, proactive, intelligence-driven approach that can identify the weaknesses, the places where we need to build strength and depth, and is an incredibly efficient way to improve the resilience of the overall organization.
Yeah, so I actually do this quite a bit. So economically quantify operational risk for an organization. By doing that, we're able to and I use basically a process that has been around for a couple of centuries now from Pascal. So I use Pascal's expected value theorem to calculate the expected loss for the threats in the business systems for an organization. What bubbles up then is the top risks, so you can not focus on every risk that you have out there, but let's say the top 20% based on its expected value. From that expected value, then you can also measure the mitigation actions against it and how it reduces that risk. So using expected value theorem to economically quantify what the risks are, and then sort ranking those risks based on their expected loss, and then using that expected loss model to model the types of mitigation actions that you want to apply against it will help you determine what the cost-benefit analysis is, as well as give you a return on investment that you can actually take into the chief financial officer and cost-justify solutions that you need to implement to reduce the overall risk for the organization. Because it really becomes, I'm not hearing from organizations that they need better planning for what could happen. They want to stop things from happening. And how do you get to that point? And expected value theorem has worked well for me, and I've used it at many financial organizations, manufacturing organizations around the world to cost justify investments.
We have another question.
Okay, thank you. The panel looks like it reduced business continuity to information security. But I know from experience, information security, though, is more, it drives the business, but the people are more important than the information security itself. Because when there is a disaster and there is nobody to get going, the information security is out of it. But again, I think as a business continuity management person, I'm looking forward to see how people that are more important during a disaster comes in the discussion, because it's focused more on getting the system up and running, but it's human beings that will do that. So I think in planning, in business continuity management, people, how to get the people safe first should be a priority. That's one. Two, I want to ask, how do you bring together the business impact analysis that you do in the process of developing a business continuity management framework and your risk assessments? How do you bring them together to say, okay, this is the business impact analysis, this is the risk assessment, what do I recover first in the event of a disaster, and what is my recovery time objective? So I will need someone with experience to say, okay, this is how we'll bring these two together. After the business impact analysis, the risk assessment, this is what we do. My last comment would be, one of the panelists say, we will hear it again. I would like to know what that event is that will soon happen, that we will hear it again.
Ivan or Bill?
Yeah, so I'll speak to the first one. I know. Dennis is probably chopping at the bit to say the second one. There's some observations on the BIA. But as far as people, for my business, you're talking to my heart, because what we train first is accounting for people. We have a program in our business that every person in the bank globally, or at least in the US, I'll say at least in the US, I'll speak to the US, in the US has to have on accounting for people card. They're responsible to account for themselves or account for a team. Because what we teach is that we don't have a business if we don't have people. So it doesn't really matter what systems we have in place, what plans we have in place to recover those systems. If we don't, to your point, if we don't have people to recover them, we have nothing. So what we train is we have a third-party provider that takes the phone calls for us. They take the count of the people and they refer that to us in an email or in a text message. All of our people can text in their whereabouts, they can phone in their whereabouts, they can email in their whereabouts. We make sure that they are accounted for. We also train this through a rapid fire notification. We use
Everbridge.
But we also have rapid fire notification that we can send out to people as well, that is managed by us and for that third party, to make sure that people are safe and accounted for. Because then we can start recovering our plans. People first, plans second.
So I think Bill knows my feeling on the BIA. But first, let me say, I look at things from irreplaceable and irrecoverable, right? And every organization has at least three of them. And they are people, data, and time. And those are the things that we need to protect, right? Those three things. As far as how do we merge the BIA and the risk assessment, the BIA is actually, in my opinion, dysfunctional. As we talked about earlier, there's a convergence now. You've got business continuity management that now has high availability targets. The BIA looks at worst case scenarios, so it creates a worst case bias. And that worst case bias focuses on all those worst case burning holes: flood, fires, hurricanes, and tornadoes. Floods, fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis. You can probably all guess that you've had if there are a large interruption in service, that would be detrimental to the organization. I want to just point out one last time. Last year, organizations lost 1.78 billion, or $178 billion for floods, fires, hurricanes, and tornadoes. We lose $500 billion monthly because of IT failures. Are you looking at the right risk?
Excellent. We're actually a few minutes over, so thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I hope you appreciated this. I'm sure the panelists would love to answer more questions personally, so feel free to reach out to them. Thank you.